person who raised them. You're always at work. No. Hearing Jovi bringing up another baby, it's like I honestly don't know from where it's coming.
She said the words every reality TV cast dreams will spark confetti, but all they sparked was confusion. I'm pregnant. No joy, no smile, not even a flicker. Just those two words dropped like a stone in studio air so flat, you could hear someone swallow off camera. Jovi froze for a second, then did what Jovi always does. Laughed louder than the moment called for. He cracked a joke about locking her into America now. But her silence after that, it was deafening. You're watching RealitySport with me, Oliva, and today's story doesn't need edits or explosions to stop you in your tracks. This one burns slow, quiet, and deep. Before we ask how things ended this badly, we have to sit in what didn't happen. When Yara said she was pregnant, the room didn't react like it should have. She didn't look at Jovi. She didn't reach for his hand or glance around in search of applause. Her hand stayed in her lap, her eyes down, her posture so tight it looked like she was bracing for impact, not celebration. Producers shifted uncomfortably off camera, but didn't cut the feed. And Jovi? He leaned back smugly, like the announcement had proved something, like he'd won an argument she never even joined. She didn't smile. At all. Say what you want about editing tricks, but body language never airs by accident. Viewers felt it right away. Something was off. And as the scene played out, social media lit up with the first wave of suspicion. Why did she seem so closed off? Had she already emotionally left before this moment hit the screen? And more importantly, why didn't Jovi notice? The show moved on like nothing was wrong, but nothing felt right. The stillness stuck longer than a fight would have. And in that stillness, 1,000 quiet questions crept in. Everyone heard the announcement, but for the first time, people started looking between the lines. And what they saw wasn't excitement, it was escape. The pregnancy wasn't the beginning of a happy chapter. It was the beginning of a quiet investigation, led not by producers, but by the fans. And they weren't celebrating. They were rewinding, pausing, analyzing. Within hours of the episode airing, Reddit threads exploded, fan pages flooded with screen grabs, and TikTok sleuths started building digital evidence walls like this was true crime, not reality TV. The first crack came from a throwaway comment Jovi made. He mentioned being offshore for work during a stretch of time that, unintentionally, lined up suspiciously well with the early stages of Yara's pregnancy. People pulled out calendars, compared travel logs, went back to Instagram highlights with suspicious precision. And then came the question nobody wanted to say out loud until someone finally did. Was Jovi ever actually home during the window this pregnancy would have started? What started as celebration quickly morphed into suspicion. Fans started posting screenshots from episodes months earlier. There was Yara in Europe, alone. Again in another cafe, alone. In airport lounges, street shots, hotel lobbies. Always alone, always disconnected. A few blurry photos had someone in the background, but the figure was cropped or turned away. Then, that same coat appeared in 2 entirely separate shots. Same color, same fit, same sleeve detail, taken weeks apart in different cities. At first, assumptions were gentle. Maybe she was visiting family. Maybe she liked being alone. But then old footage resurfaced. One confessional had Yara mentioning she extended her Europe trip longer than originally planned. Another featured Jovi joking that she might love Europe more than she loves him. And not in a sweet way. The kind of joke people make when they don't know how to say what they really mean. Fans started asking real questions. Did Jovi even want to have this baby? Did Yara feel safe enough to tell him earlier? Why didn't she light up when she made the announcement? Why didn't he notice she was frozen from head to toe when she said it? And suddenly, attention snapped toward what wasn't said. What wasn't acknowledged. What wasn't explained. Online forums dug deeper. Side-by-side videos from past seasons showed how much Yara had changed. From outspoken to withdrawn, animated to vigilant. Viewers noticed how often she paused before answering questions now. How she flinched when dates came up in conversation. How her hands always rested on her stomach, not with affection, but like a reminder of what she carried. Or maybe what she'd kept to herself. Then came the photos. Old European uploads started resurfacing. Fans zoomed in, reposted, clocks on walls, timestamps on receipts, cross-referenced with Jovi's public job schedule. Offshore logs weren't secrets. People found them. And somehow, the math got messier. The gaps got more specific. The overlaps more uncomfortable. The word DNA started floating around. Not shouted, not alleged, but whispered. And the whispers pulled more attention than any promo clip could have. What started as a pregnancy reveal had already spiraled into something else. Because every timeline leads somewhere when fans stop watching for drama and start watching for patterns. By the next few episodes, it wasn't just the online sleuths who noticed the cracks. It was anyone paying the slightest bit of attention. At first glance, Jovi seemed like he always did. Loud, playful, always ready with a drink and a punchline. But now, none of it felt harmless. It felt like cover, like sound layered over silence. And the more he laughed, the more people leaned into their screens thinking, why is he trying so hard? Yara, by contrast, had shrunk into stillness. Not physically small, but emotionally armored. She sat straighter, crossed her arms more, looked through people instead of at them. Every time Jovi put his arm around her, you'd see her body go rigid for a half second before she regrouped. It wasn't obvious. You'd miss it on first watch. But after the pregnancy reveal, people were studying every frame like they were looking for clues. And they were finding them. She stopped laughing at his jokes. She didn't engage in his teasing anymore. What used to look like playful banter now read like evasion. He'd say something flirty or sarcastic, and she'd glance away, down at her water glass, at the floor, at anything except him. And when the group conversation started flowing, Yara turned quiet. Sometimes she smiled, but it never lasted. The spark wasn't dimmed. It was turned off. Even producers seemed to be handling things differently. The editing was strange. Conversations about the baby skipped awkwardly. Weeks passed in the storyline without marking key milestones. Certain interactions felt cut mid-sentence. Viewers picked up on it fast. Something was being trimmed. Or maybe protected. And when reality TV starts protecting you, the audience knows exactly what that means. There's something they're not ready to air. Something they know will explode, just not yet. The course of each episode had a rhythm before. Now, it was disjointed, uncomfortable, like the show itself couldn't figure out how to package what they were filming. The lighthearted group scenes felt forced. The couple interviews were tense. There wasn't a single full scene of Yara and Jovi sharing an unscripted, joyful moment. Even the background music didn't lift the mood like before. Producers weren't even trying to pretend anymore that this was a happy couple expecting a baby. And then, the most jarring moment, Jovi made another one of his signature pregnancy jokes, smirking as he told a friend that, at least this'll keep her from flying off to Europe every few weeks. He laughed. No one else did. Yara didn't respond, didn't blink. The look on her face was layered. Not shock, not betrayal, no dramatic eye roll. It was colder than that. It was resignation. The kind of look someone gives when they've heard the same joke 20 times and realized it's not a joke. It's deflection. And that's when the audience truly started shifting. The whisper of doubt became the weight of reality. This wasn't a scandal. This was emotional distance. A gap wide enough that Jovi couldn't joke his way across it anymore. It wasn't just what was happening on screen. It was how differently they operated now. Jovi insisted on date nights, planned celebratory outings, talked about their next adventure, all in camera's view. But it all sounded like future talk from someone still pretending everything was fine. His excitement felt performative, like energy from a man trying to cast himself in a role he couldn't feel anymore. Meanwhile, Yara stopped performing altogether. She showed up, said her lines, nodded politely, but she was mentally distant in every shot. When people congratulated her, she'd smile, quick and tight, but her eyes always drifted. And the camera caught it. Every time, even the fan base, usually split found rare unity in reading between the lines. Message boards lit up with frame-by-frame reactions, threads collecting scenes where the timeline didn't make sense, charts connecting offshore calendar dates with the trip that accidentally got extended. The phrase, "emotional absence counts too," kept surfacing in the comments. And that theme hit harder than any one-liner could, because this wasn't about one mistake. This was about years of being unheard. Yara's subtle distance had become undeniable, but Jovi didn't or wouldn't see it. He kept pouring champagne into his identity as the loud husband who makes everything a laugh. But the party tone was now grating, like music playing too loud at a funeral. He'd talk over her answers in interviews, speak for her when the host asked about future plans, say "we" when she hadn't even spoken. And every time he did, her face stiffened. One moment, they were asked if they were planning to set up a nursery yet. Jovi joked that he was just waiting for her to tell him what color she wanted. Yara smiled, a small, tired flicker. "Maybe I won't be here when it's time to set that up." And the silence that followed? Absolutely chilling. The host tried pivoting. Jovi tried laughing. But the comments stuck like a splinter. Fans clipped it, reposted it, quoted it. And the theory started swirling faster than TLC could deflect it. Was Yara planning on leaving again? Before the baby? With the baby? And if so, why? The editing got weirder. Full conversations trimmed to reaction shots. Timelines skimmed over altogether. It was like production was buying time. Because they weren't addressing the obvious, they were waiting, teasing even. Then, one cast member offhandedly mentioned unseen footage during a group segment. The production room shifted. An awkward cut. Not a full sentence. Fans rewound it 8 times. The consensus? There's something missing, and not small. Then came confirmation. Quiet but unmistakable. A promo for the upcoming tell-all teased something that struck a match across the entire fandom. Previously unaired footage may change everything you thought you saw. No clip, no explanation, no hint at what. Just a smirk from the host, a flicker of Yara looking uneasy, and one word, sealed. That was the moment everyone started counting down to the tell-all. Because when a reality TV franchise as chaotic as this suddenly gets quiet, that's when things get dangerous, and the audience already knew. Editing wasn't hiding a scandal anymore. It was hiding a truth. And judging by the way Yara was pulling inward and the way Jovi was plugging holes with empty laughs, the truth wasn't going to be easy on either of them. Episodes used to make you root for resolution. Now they made you brace for the reveal. And pray it wasn't as bad as you suspected. It was supposed to be just another tell-all. Awkward group tension, quotes taken out of context, maybe one walk-off. But the second those studio lights hit, the energy didn't feel like TV. It felt surgical. Like the air knew something was coming before anyone said a word. Yara walked in silent, back straight, hands folded like she was trying to keep something inside from shaking loose. Jovi swaggered in 3 minutes later, all smiles and shoulder pats, already cracking jokes with the crew. He looked relaxed, like a man who thought he'd survived the worst accusations the internet could throw at him. But he didn't know what was coming. Not yet. They took their seats. The host welcomed everyone, set the usual tone. Then, casually, he reached under the table and lifted a plain cream folder, sealed at the flap. Yara saw it and blinked hard. She didn't look surprised. She looked braced. Her fingers fidgeted, then stopped. Shoulder back, chin lifted. Only one person in that room didn't know what was inside that envelope, and it was the man sitting right next to her. Jovi laughed when he saw it, lifted his eyebrows, shrugged like the camera was another buddy at the bar. "What is this? High school again?" He chuckled loud enough for everyone to hear, as if laughing could keep the moment light. But Yara didn't move. She kept her eyes on the host. And that silence changed the entire room. The host paused, then played the previously unseen footage. It cut to Yara months earlier, alone in a stark interview chair. Hair tied back, no makeup. Her voice was steady. "I'm asking for a DNA test," she said. No emotion, no venom. "Not because I want to prove anything. I need clarity for myself. Back to studio. Jovi's face changed instantly. He leaned forward, tensed. That's not something we needed, he said too quickly. I trust you. It's unnecessary. But no one else was nodding. The mood had flipped on its axis. What looked like betrayal now looked like preparation. Yara, calm as ever, only spoke once. The test is for both of us, not just you. Then came the envelope. The host opened it slow, deliberate. Jovi crossed his arms, then dropped them. His smile was gone now. When the result was read aloud, 3 words sank the entire room into stunned silence. Not Jovi's, gasps, shifting seats, cast members frozen halfway through their reactions. Yara didn't cry, didn't flinch, just breathed. Jovi blinked so fast it looked involuntary. His lips parted like he wanted to say something, anything, but found nothing. His mother, who was seated offstage, burst in, shouting, disbelief and anger clashing in her voice. Producers tried to restore order, but it was chaos now. Everyone talking, no one making sense, except Yara, who stayed still. Jovi turned to face her, voice already cracking from shock. Tell me this isn't real, he said, eyes wide, voice shaking. She didn't meet his desperation. She met him with truth. One sentence, straight, controlled. I haven't been okay for a long time. And the moment that bomb dropped, sympathy split and the real show began. When that final word left the host's mouth, not Jovi's, the internet exploded before the cameras even cut to commercial. Within minutes, Reddit, Twitter, Facebook groups, TikTok, it was war. Half the fans called it betrayal. The other half saw it as the inevitable cost of years spent alone in a marriage that only looked intact in photos. But what everyone agreed on? That episode didn't feel like reality TV anymore. It felt like the kind of heartbreak you don't bounce back from. Clips that once seemed harmless were now getting clipped, stitched, reanalyzed. Jovi doing shots on camera while Yara looked bored and pregnant. Jovi showing up late to dinner, again and again with the same excuse. Work, travel, offshore. Missing birthdays, missing flights, missing context. It had always been shrugged off as, that's just Jovi. Suddenly, just Jovi didn't feel like a lovable flaw anymore. It felt like the beginning. Every joke, every moment he made the loudest noise in the room to avoid hearing silence. It all felt different now. Fans started calling it a pattern, not a phase. What was once passed off as cringy husband behavior became the subject of serious threads titled, Did Jovi ever actually listen to her? And the screenshots kept coming. Look how many times Yara told him she felt alone. Look at his face while she explained how hard it was living in a new country without her family. Look how fast he changed the subject every time she brought up something that mattered. Jovi tried to get ahead of the storm. His Instagram post came fast. A gray square, black text. Something about needing privacy, working through pain, learning hard lessons. But the tone was off, like he was trying to crowd manage a brand, not process a loss. The comments were brutal. Defenders told people not to kick him while he was down. Others replied, he's been stepping over the pieces for 3 seasons. By day 3, Jovi stopped posting altogether. Behind the scenes, reports from set started slipping out. He wasn't showing up on time. When he did, he looked drained. Couldn't focus. One PA said he didn't speak to anyone unless required. Another said he just scrolled his phone, watched old uploads on mute, and paced. That same cocky attitude was gone, stripped by the one thing he couldn't log off from. A truth that came with a printed page, read aloud, in front of millions. And Yara? She said nothing. No press statement, no angry live, no defensive Instagram rant. She just, slipped off the radar with intention. The only thing fans noticed? Her post gradually changed. Location tags started reading different cities again. Quiet cafes, warm lighting. No longer tourist shots. These were daily life moments. Bread, books, coffee. No baby bump glam. No baby shower theme. Just a woman returning to herself where she felt known. The silence from her wasn't icy. It was absolute. And that's what made people stop scrolling and start thinking. This wasn't a pause. This was a breakup lived slowly, in public, under the weight of years she had already spent emotionally disentangling herself. The calm she carried didn't say, "I'm unaffected." It said, "Nothing you say now changes what didn't happen then." Europe wasn't a detour anymore. It was direction. Not distance for drama, distance for peace. Autonomy in motion. This wasn't a woman running away from something. This was a woman walking toward herself, without noise, without permission, and without plans to turn around. The cameras came back one last time, but nothing about this moment felt produced. No dramatic zoom, no pumped-up music cues, no scripted confrontations that built for 30 episodes just to leave both parties backtracking in the next. This time, it was simple, quiet, and much heavier. Yara walked into the final sit-down like someone who'd already left inside. There was no bitterness on her face, no vindication, no need to win the conversation. Just the weight of decision already made. She wore it like armor, firm posture, steady breath, stillness that broadcast control at a cellular level. The kind of calms that doesn't come from peace, but from exhaustion. From surviving so many emotional storms that silence becomes the only language left that doesn't feel violent. Jovi was already seated, checking his phone, probably scrolling through headline after headline, trying to find a version of the story that felt less brutal. But every angle was the same. DNA test, confirmed not his. Yara composed, Jovi shook. And now, here they sat. The host gave a soft, careful welcome. No theatrics, no stoking the fire. Even they knew there was nothing left to push. Yara spoke first, and it wasn't a monologue. It was a map. A brief, direct explanation of what she was doing, where she was going, and why this moment wasn't a conversation so much as an exit. "I've made arrangements," she said. Voice low, but clear. "I'm moving back to Europe with the baby. This environment is not something I want my child raised in." Jovi opened his mouth fast, too fast. The words tripped all over each other. "Wait, no, listen. I know I messed up. I know I didn't show up the way I should have. But don't punish the kid for that. We can fix this." She didn't interrupt. She also didn't react. That blank expression? Honest. Because this wasn't about rage. This wasn't even about betrayal anymore. The debate had ended weeks ago. What Jovi didn't understand was that he'd spent so long performing a version of trying that when the real ask finally came, presence, not promises, he had nothing left to offer that didn't feel delayed. Promises weren't currency anymore. They were noise. "I'm not punishing anyone," Yara said softly. "I'm protecting myself, protecting my peace, protecting what's left of my heart." Jovi kept going, bargaining mode, saying he'd move to Europe if she wanted. Quit drinking, go to therapy. Do anything? She still didn't argue, because arguments suggest stakes. Hope. Stakes you're still willing to fight for. But fighting meant inviting more chaos. And she wasn't trying to win. She was trying to leave intact. He said he'd already started making changes. That he didn't know she was this serious. She raised one eyebrow, just enough to say, "You had time." Not in the petty sense. In the sobering, adult, I waited years for this sense. When the host asked if there was any chance for reconciliation later, her answer was immediate. Not harsh, not dramatic, just clear. No. The word landed like an anchor. And nothing else had to follow it. At this point, viewers expected some final explosion. Maybe a tearful collapse. A walk-off. But Yara didn't walk off angry. She stayed seated, answered with clarity, and let the weight of her decision press more than any outburst could. The longer she sat there, composed, balanced, the more viewers realized this wasn't temporary space. Jovi tried to close the gap again, offering co-parenting plans, asking her to slow down. But time already called the score. They say love ends with a bang. But that's not how this one died. It ended in little cuts. Ignored check-ins, lonely holidays, ghosted pregnancy appointments, jokes used to mask pain. Small dismissals that turned into long-term avoidance. And when she finally stopped asking to be noticed, her leaving wasn't news. It was overdue. Jovi finally stopped talking. He slumped back in his seat, staring at a spot on the floor the cameras couldn't see. For the first time, he wasn't defending, denying, deflecting. He was absorbing, unprotected. And you could see it settling in. Everything he was trying to salvage now wasn't salvageable. Because saying "I'll change" at the finish line doesn't rewind the race back to the start. She stood up slowly, smoothed her dress, grabbed her bag, and paused. Not for him, for herself. No grand monologue, no reassurance to the cameras or one-liner to the audience. Just a breath, the kind of breath that says, "This door is closing, and I'm not trying to leave it cracked open." And Jovi didn't get up to follow her. Not because he'd given up, but because instinct told him what she needed now, more than words, was space. And for the first time, he gave it to her. Too little. Too late. And the suitcase closing wasn't the end. It was the sound of someone choosing peace, not press. Stay tuned, because what happened after the cameras cut may be even worse than what we saw on screen.